Good evening, workshoppers, and thank you for joining me here on this very special episode. We're going to have a special guest here with us tonight, so go ahead, pull up a chair, put on your favorite smoking jacket, get a glass of whiskey, because tonight we are spending an evening with Rhykker. And so, without further ado, the man that needs no introduction, and so I'm going to introduce him anyways. Mr. Rhykker, thank you for going through and joining us here tonight. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. I know this is something that we've talked about in the past for probably a couple of years. You know, about like having you on the show at some point, and just never really got to materializing. But
yeah. Well, I came on once a long time ago, and we've wanted to come back on again, but just schedules not matching up.
Yeah, but it's definitely good that we could go through and make that work.
Yeah.
So yeah, for the two people that might actually end up watching or listening to this episode that don't already know who you are, if you'd like to go through and tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and why are you here?
Hey folks, this is Rhykker.
He did the thing!
Yeah, so I'm a video content creator on YouTube, on Twitch. My content is primarily, or has been primarily, Diablo focused for a number of years now, but I do a little bit of variety stuff as well, gaming news and guides, and sometimes just general action RPG content as well.
Yeah, and I know I get, you know, with when I have a super busy schedule, I end up getting a lot of my news, you know, specifically from your content, you know, so it's you know, it's great to actually, you know, I've said this already twice now, but it's great to just have you here. Yeah,
it's great to be on. I remember, you know, we met a few years ago at BlizzCon, and I repeat the story as often as I can, but basically, my first BlizzCon, I was by myself, and but at some subsequent BlizzCon was when it started becoming a community thing, and it was because Monstrous, Neinball, and Leviathan were there, and they saw me, and they just welcomed me into their fold with open arms, and just you're all wonderful people. Love you. Yeah, it completely changed BlizzCon for me going forward into being a community-based thing, and just great memories, treasured memories for years.
Oh yeah. It's something that we've talked about on the show many times, that BlizzCon is definitely about the community experience, and everything else kind of like comes second. And it's just always been kind of like that way. J.R. Eldorian, you know, one of the co-founders of BlizzPro, he actually like was trying to coin a term at this past BlizzCon that he calls it Diablotron, because every year at BlizzCon, the Diablo community comes together to form like this massive construct that he doesn't see like in any other of the fandoms, like just how like strong and close knit. It might be because, you know, like in the Diablo community, we're a bit smaller than a lot of the other Blizzard fandoms, and so it might just have a bit more of that opportunity because it's smaller of having the you know, the forces join together. But it definitely feels a lot more close-knit than, like, in terms of encompassing the entirety of the community. I don't think that you could fit, like, the entirety of the World of Warcraft community in, like, a single hall over there, you know, so...
That's fair, yeah.
But you know, we do have like a couple of small little things, you know, that's been happening in the past week. You know, we were just talking a little bit before we went live in the show. Patch 2.6.4. Where are you? You know, it's we're guessing, you know, with the patch for the consoles launched earlier today, which, you know, at the time of this recording, January 15th, and the guesstimates are that we'll get the PC patch tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully someone's got to poke classic games to get on things.
Yeah, there was a brief post from Tivolier on the forums, and apparently there was some issues with the PC patch that they're having to work out before they actually finish rolling it out to all the live servers.
In fairness, I think PC typically does get it before console, so I think it's okay if console gets it first for once.
Mm-hmm. And we're all getting the season at the same time, so getting the patch a day early isn't really going to mean anything when most people are just going to use these next couple of days as preparation, practice, and it's you've covered it extensively, a lot of the patch changes, talked about it a bit on the show over the last couple episodes as well. But is there any particular favorite change or favorite part of the changes that they've done in patch 6.4 that you're excited about?
Well, I think what I like most, if we had to strip everything down and I could only pick one thing to retain from the patch, it would be just the pure balance changes. I'm happy that we're going to get a new meta, different top builds, so reason for people to play different builds, different classes even. But other things that are smaller, I really like the change to primals. Having the red beam, and was that Tony's idea? With as well the border, it makes them a little bit more special. When we first were getting drops, seeing that God beam was an exciting thing. But now with power creep and with higher difficulty becoming more accessible and thus higher drop rates becoming more accessible, we're just completely immune. There's no longer any Pavlovian response to seeing the beams. But I guarantee you, at least in my case, if I see a red beam, I'm gonna freak out. Yeah,
it's gonna be like that cool little thing. It's like, ooh, I need to go through and find out what that is. Especially if you're it doesn't drop right in front of you and it's off the map, and you just see you hear the notification and you see that big pentagram just sitting right there on the minimap. You're gonna have to run over and go pick that up and see what it is, as opposed to blindly salvaging through all of your things. It's an item that you don't actually care about, and then you realize that you just got 15 Forgotten Souls. It's like, oh,
there you go.
That was a primal. Oh well. Yeah.
How about you? What are you most excited about?
I have to say that the change to the primals, as well as I'm a little bit conflicted with the free primal at 70. The past couple of seasons, I have had limited play time, and so I've been playing softcore as opposed to hardcore, and at least going through and getting that one primal for clearing the GR70 is going to be at least nice in terms of having that maybe that little bit of a boost in terms of progression. But at the same time, I guess some of my other issues with the items, it is reinforcing some of my issues that I have with the itemization in D3, at the point that we're at now, that it's you feel as if you complete it the gear grind too quickly, and then it's just the GR grind after that.
I share that sentiment overall, that I think it's too easy to gear in this game right now, and I know it's not an opinion shared by everyone. Some people feel that it's either just right or it should even be easier. I like the way things were within I think maybe these 6 months after Reaper of Souls launched. I feel that was a good place with regards to how difficult it was to gear up. But I'm not too bothered by the 70, the free primal at 70, just because it's pretty much, if you get a usable primal for your build, that's pretty damn lucky. Yeah, I guess.
As opposed to getting
Blackthorns.
Blackthorns. So, Blackthorns. A Justice Lantern. You're going to get a primal puzzle ring that'll look so great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Primal Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. They're important to max out those stats.
Man, I can't wait. That's getting me excited. It's funny that you mentioned that, because it's those 6 months, in between the launch of Reaper, that was also around, that was really before they had done any major rework on a lot of, they had done the rework on the class sets for Reaper, but they hadn't started any of the rounds of balancing, and that was before Unhallowed Essence and a lot of the other new sets they had added in to kind of bring everyone up to 4. Because those were a lot of ones that were actually, there were a lot of builds you didn't have to have a set for. Yeah. The set was an alternate gearing style, and that's just triggering, because I've actually been playing D2 for the past couple of weeks, more so than D3, and it's the type of thing that I'm just finding a little bit more parallels with. If you get like some set pieces, like I'm playing an assassin, if I get a couple of pieces of Natalia's, oh, I would be, you know, it'd be wonderful. It'd be a dream, even if it's not like the perfect thing for where my build wants to go in the end game. It's still going to be really good pieces that will help me get there. But it's not the end-all be-all. I'm going to be looking for some rares, or, you know, for some like crafted bloody gloves with plus martial arts skills and, you know, other things like that. It has a different gearing system, but at the same time, as I was leveling, a friend of mine gave me a Bartuk's talent, and that one item changed gameplay for me completely. I'll spare the listeners, you know, regaling the entire story, since I went into a little bit more detail last episode. But D2, it was one of those things that I was kind of shocked about, because I didn't remember so much in Diablo 2, like a single item having as much of an impact as that one Bartuk's did. Because it made the game, as I was struggling to get through the end of Nightmare, it made the game easy mode all the way until I got to Hell. So it carried me through easily like 15 levels, and, you know, Act 3, 4, 5, and Act 1 in Hell. Just going through and having like that one item upgrade.
And about the sets in D2, I do remember, like, sets weren't the end game. There were so many more advanced but more difficult to gear for options, and I largely agree with the design philosophy that you highlighted of sets being an alternate gearing option rather than the end-all be-all, particularly when it comes to 6-piece sets, that it's taken up over half of your itemization slots. I think there's no room for variety, really. You know, I prefer having more options, more variety. I wouldn't want to. It's not that I want to do away with sets altogether. I think they're cool. I think, at least in Diablo 2, I found they were really cool to have, like, oh, you know, these are a bunch of themed items around one idea, one character that it's named after. I found the lore of it really cool. In particular, I remember a friend of mine actually was playing a barbarian, and his whole thing throughout Diablo 2 was to get the full IK set. And he spent years playing D2 and trading his way until he finally got the full IK. And then when he got it, the game was kind of over for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also in D2, like, beating the game was, you know, relatively easy. It wasn't like beating the game wasn't like an end goal. You had to like create your own reason to keep playing. Yeah. You know, you like finding a complete IK set, or I'm not stopping until I actually go through and get myself a Hellfire charm for defeating, you know, Uber Tristram. Little things like that. But it's like the sets were good for certain builds that maybe the set was built around, but the power, like the set pieces themselves weren't really any more innately powerful than other uniques or well-rolled rares within the same slot, you know. And so, you had other like kind of like pseudo generic ones, like the Necromancer, the Trangle's gloves had 25% increased poison damage. Anyone that had a poison build could use those. In a pinch, like you know, an assassin like a Kikkasin, you know, that might be going through and doing like boss runs and such, might use it just for the increased damage on Venom. Yeah, there are better options, but it was still like, it was a viable option that you could go through and equip, and it's just, you know, it wasn't like, you know, 13,000%, you know, damage difference between using the set and not using the set.
It reminds me a bit of vanilla D3, actually. There were, I believe it was Zuni boots that gave more poison damage, so even non-witch doctors would want to wear them. And then you had the inner pants with attack speed, and then
the inner belt with crit.
Right.
Yeah, and so those were usable on just like a multitude of classes, because of just it had a stat I can't get anywhere else in that particular slot, so I'm using it. And you know.
In the case of D3, though, for the most part, I think it was bad because it resulted in, for the most part, most classes, most builds having the same best, like, you know, Mempo of Twilight, most builds used. For a good number of the items, there was that one best in slot across most classes on most builds, which You know, anytime you don't have variety, I think there's a design problem.
Yeah, if there's only one like best choice and nothing else that's viable, then obviously there's an issue. Which is the nice thing that they're doing with like the revamping of these all the class set balance in 2.6.4 is, even though there's still going to be a best build, the variation of difference between them has shrunk. By in some cases some very large margins, and so you don't feel as penalized playing a less optimum build if it still can get you to like GR90.
Yeah.
And it also, when you're going through and mentioning like the whole just the 6-piece set and locking out so many other like item slots and variations, there's one thing that I did find kind of surprising with 2.6.4, and that's that they haven't addressed the Demon Hunter, the N6M4 conundrum, which is like one of those ones where it's like the 6-piece set bonus from Natalia's buffs the Marauder's pylons, because the Marauder 4-piece and Marauder 6-piece bonuses, one buffs your pylons but doesn't buff you, and then the other one buffs you but not your pylons, and so it doesn't scale as much as the Natalia's bonus does. But if you're running pure Marauders, the majority of your damage is coming from yourself, with a little bit of extra damage coming from your sentries, whereas if working your gear and completely taking up almost every slot in order to equip the 6-piece Natalias with the 4-piece Marauders will not only buff your damage but also buff your pylons damage, and so it shoots both of those respective sets its damage straight up through the roof, though like through the roof is not too accurate, because it kind of keeps pace with the other classes and some of the other Demon Hunter sets. But it's just I guess it's strange that they haven't fixed like Marauders to just buff your sentry damage.
Yeah, I know that. Well, I don't know if it was just Travis Day or multiple members of the team, but when they were developing the Necromancer, they specifically did not want any set mixing to happen. So they specifically designed the items for the set such that you could not get any 4-piece, 6-piece combos going. And the reason they gave was, well, the only reason you would ever want to I'm paraphrasing, but I think that they said something to this effect. The only reason you would ever want to combine 2 sets is to produce something more powerful. And then it's just a balancing problem, because then, well, this new powerful combination makes all the other sets obsolete. Somehow that didn't end up being the case with N6M4, which I find interesting. And I do find it mechanically interesting, the change of Marauder buffs your sentries buff you, and with Natalia it's the other way around, that your sentries are the ones dealing the damage. Honestly, I find sentry builds pretty unpleasant to play, so I don't really like playing N6M4 or Marauder. There was some earlier iteration of because they've changed the way sentries operated, or at least the way the Marauder set operated. I think at first it was set it and forget it, right? Yeah,
it's the very first iterations of Marauders, the sentries had an internal cooldown set for the specific spenders, and so you actually like equipped 3 spenders, on your bar that you never used. You just ran around, and the sentries would sit there and they would spam, like ball lightning and periodically cluster arrow. And then
it was the perfect streamer build.
Oh yeah.
Read chat.
Yep. And then they changed it to where it only fired after you fired. And then there actually was a specific point when they changed the functionality, because back before like the numbers started getting kind of like to ridiculous levels, the Marauder's 6-piece bonus did buff the sentry damage, and the majority of your damage in Marauders was coming from the sentries. So you would just kind of like shoot ball lightning in the corner, and then they would shoot ball lightning and kill things with all the damage bonuses. And so they changed it specifically so that way you had to be the one doing the damage, and the sentries were just a visual representation of how much increased damage you were doing instead of doing anything significant themselves. And
Which is kind of against the spirit of what it's not the fantasy of the build. Like the N6M4 better represents the fantasy of what the Marauder build was intended to be.
And that kind of goes back to my point of, you know, it's like there's this build exists. It's better than Marauders for doing what Marauders tries to do. It circumvents the change that they made to Marauders, you know, to make it so that way you are the one doing the damage and not the sentries. And it hasn't been touched yet, either just breaking it, you know, or buffing Marauders, one or the other. Like at this point, it really doesn't, to me, it really doesn't matter which step that they take, but it's funny that they continue to ignore it despite the fact that it's been there for, you know, forever now, and it's never been addressed or touched.
Do you believe that at this phase of Diablo 3's life, we could still see that degree of change happen within a build? And I'm asking this from two perspectives. One from just, you know, whatever manpower they have left working on it, but also more of, is N6M4 at this point too ingrained within the community that taking it away would upset people more than leaving it in the game?
I guess that is one of those ones that it's an interesting question. And if you had asked me this a year ago, even if we were, say, in the same situation, but on the old development team, I probably would have said yes, so they would still do it even though it was, you know, ingrained in that particular playstyle, because they haven't been too scared about breaking or changing the playstyles or the themes within, you know, some of the class sets, even if they had become prevalent over time. Like, even just looking at the history of Marauders is kind of like a case in point. But I don't know enough about the developers of the development mindset of classic games to really, I guess, answer that as anything more than just flipping a coin.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I would probably have to say that maybe I will kind of default back to the same response, that I think that it's something that, you know, if they deem a problematic playstyle, regardless of if it's become the standard, that they would look in order to go through it and change it. Especially, you know, given the fact that it's not like the ultimate top clearing build for Demon Hunters or anything like that. It is, you know, kind of an up there and competitive build, so they might not, it might give them, you know, more credence that, well, if we change it, you know, they can play something else. Yeah, that's just one of, you know, my continuing thoughts. Out of all the stuff that they did in this particular patch, it's the one thing that they kind of like skipped. And so it's like that's my one question if I get to talk to one of the you know, the developers, you know, with that's in charge of D3 now. It'll be like, why? Why are you not addressing this? Why? But, you know, just kind of like going through and building upon that, you know, Season 16, where we're going through and it's staring us right in the face coming up here on Friday. What are you excited to play?
I've had a very difficult time picking this season. I'm maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but I think this might be the most difficult choice I've made. I'm trying to find the right balance between something I want to play, ideally something that I haven't played within the last, let's say, year or last few seasons, build-wise at least. And I tend to like to pick a class that has a good start. Also, I know a lot of people will make more than one season character. I only have the one character slot that I can devote to re-rolling into a season character. I will never delete any of my characters. I'm too attached to them. So I rebirth, you know, one character. So I have to choose wisely, you know, and I like to get a good season start set as well. So I'm sort of leaning towards Barbarian because of that. I kind of like IK. It's a very generalist set, so depending on what gear you get, you know, it buffs any damage as long as you have the full set. It's not like you must be using one of these skills, and then you got to find the correct supplementary items specifically for those. And it progresses very naturally into builds that I know and like. Hammer of the Ancients. The only caveat here is that I played Hoda Rhykker a couple seasons ago, so I sort of don't want to build back to that, but then I'm kind of going to be in a position where well, I could either play the inferior version that's just Hoda IK, which is fun and it's easier to gear for and easier to play. So that's my only reservation. It's like I'm going to be tempted to go to Hoda Rhykker because I enjoy Hoda Rhykker as well. It's not that if I did not enjoy the playstyle, like with Wizard, I will play Tal Rasha Fire Meteor rather than Star Pact because I just prefer the playstyle. I know it's weaker, but I much prefer the playstyle. Oh, yeah. I can't quite say the same with IK versus Rhykker for Hoda though. I don't know. What about you?
For me, oddly enough, I'm considering Demon Hunter again. Because I've been playing the nothing but the Necromancer since it's come out. I love the aesthetic. I love the kind of extreme variations in play styles that you have across the different builds, and also just kind of like for similar to what you were saying. Between the three of the four builds have a little bit of variation that they can do as far as generalist gearing. This season is Tragols, and so that one you have a little bit more that you can go through and play with. As far as you have a lot of different avenues that you can start the season with for your builds in order to go and do. But otherwise, Demon Hunter has been a long time love of mine. I just not having played it any for a year and a half, almost going on 2 years and a couple months, it's going to be one of those ones where it's like, I should give it a try.
Shadow and Pale massily buffed. I'll make one character on NA, one on EU. I might go Shadow and Pale on EU, especially if I'm playing hardcore.
I do have to, this is definitely a very strong connection that I have with Leviathan on that one. Absolutely love Shadow and Pale. Absolutely love it. When they first buff shadows, and you had just dang it, that was that 2 years ago, three BlizzCons ago,
yeah,
2 BlizzCons ago.
Yeah,
and they went and they previewed the changes, and you had the belt that you could go through, Impale, and then vault for free. All those little tiny things. It was just like, oh my god, they're making this perfect. We have to do this. I had so much fun. Oh, and apparently they're going through and saying in chat that patch 2.6.4 is now live. So,
well, fancy that.
There you go. We thank you all for joining us on tonight's episode. No. But yeah, so yeah, we're sitting there complaining about it, and now here it is. We have a long-standing joke on the show that usually it's like we have the true Westmarch Wednesday that Blizzard holds off announcements and patches and things like that until Wednesday, just so that way we can talk about it during the show. Yeah. Oh, but are you excited about the changes that having the Ring of Royal Grandeur as like the seasonal bonus might bring for the season, as opposed to like I guess not having that particular bonus?
Well, so when they first announced theme seasons, I was excited at the idea. When they announced what the first theme season was, which was Double Goblins, I was like, okay, they're just getting warmed up. Then the next one was Double Bounties, or Double Bounty Rewards, and I got pretty bummed at that point, because I thought, okay, well, they're not still warming up. But it turns out they were, because this is definitely a bigger thing. I like where they're heading. I can't say that this specifically, the grandeur buff excites me, just because in a practical sense, it just allows every build to have one additional item, which is nice. It's again, it's the best seasonal theme we've gotten so far.
Yes.
Something that really excited me would have been that you could make it stack with an additional Ring of Royal Grandeur. That would have been absolute insanity, probably broken in a terrible way. Yeah. I don't know that I would have wanted a full season of that, but it would have. Then we would have been combining multiple sets together. It would have been absolute.
Then every class would have a X6Y4 build at that point.
Yeah.
Or more. You'd have an N6 M6 build at that point.
Yeah.
God. Then you would still do more damage than your sentries, and it would be back to square one. That actually would fix it. That would fix the problem.
There you go.
Blizzard, get on it. This man's a genius.
Yeah. So on one hand, it would allow for theory crafting completely new builds. Because what this doesn't do, the grandeur buff, it doesn't allow new builds to emerge, really. It's just existing builds are going to get one additional item, which, if you already had a Ring of Royal Grandeur, your build now has a convention of elements.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get some other item somewhere. It's a small power increase, maybe of a couple GRs or so, on average throughout all the builds. But we also have this Legacy of Nightmares buff going on at the same time, which I think Lon is the dark horse to win Season 16. Some pro players are kind of theory crafting Lon builds that should be able to beat out anything else that you can put together with a set.
Yeah,
which would be ironic if Lon is the winner of the Season of Grandeur.
That would be hilarious. That would actually absolutely be hilarious, because we didn't actually get to test this Legacy of Nightmares on the PTR. It was in between the PTR and like the official patch notes. They buffed it a lot, and so yeah, that would be ironic. I hadn't really thought of it that way.
We'll have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And I definitely agree with you on that. That it would be nice to see that they are doing a bit more radical changes with the seasons, and that hopefully going forward from here we'll see things that will actually have an impact. Change things up.
I think this is definitely a positive step in the direction and a positive sign, because it could have just been double gold or double blood shards. So we're on the right track now.
Oh, definitely. And now that the Switch release is out, they can actually focus a little bit more development time on whatever it is that they have as far as plans for the next season. The next, maybe not so much the next season, but then the season after that. So going into, I guess that would be season 18. Season 17 or 18 might be a little bit less, just because that's going to be around the launch of Warcraft 3 Reforged. And so we maybe once Reforged ships, we could see even more potential changes or like an influx of ideas and such into Diablo 3.
Yeah,
it's one of those ones. It's a possibility. It's a shot in the dark. I know, it was one thing going through and speculating about what they might do from D3 from the kind of like the viewpoint of having speculated and talked to the developers of the game for years and building those relationships, to now it being handed off to like a different development team and not really having any of those connections or the ideas, or like kind of like knowing like the idioms of like the developers and like the things that they want to make manifest into the game and such. So now it feels, I guess, like, I don't know if you've experienced it from that point, but it's something that I've kind of sit back and like trying to speculate where they might go in the future, and it's like, I have no idea.
Yeah. It's like, even, people are asking, when's the patch going to launch? And I'm like, well, I know that historically they've liked to launch on Tuesdays, but I don't know what this new team is going to want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing about classic games after Reforged launches, and if you have already discussed this, feel free to be brief, but do you believe that after Warcraft 3 they're going to get cracking on Diablo 2 remaster?
Everything that I've seen about Warcraft 3 Reforged has actually maybe upped my hopes on getting a D2 remaster. David Brevik was on the P-Child and Lord Fluffy's the New Meta podcast. I think it was last week or the week before, and he again kind of like reiterated that Diablo or Diablo 2 remaster would be extremely difficult, because from going from a couple years back, the interview that you did, where he said that he kind of laid it out there that the original source code is probably gone, and that anything that they do would kind of like be rebuilding it from the ground up. And well, that's what they're doing with Warcraft 3 Reforged. They're rebuilding the game from the ground up. It's completely changing like some of the mechanics and such in the background, while still allowing it to work. It's like a brand new engine, but it will still work and interface with the original Warcraft 3 engine in multiplayer. And so it's like, well, they're going that far. Maybe they could do it with D2.
Yeah, I definitely believe Brevik, when he says that it would be exceptionally difficult, but you know, exceptionally difficult isn't impossible, and as long as you're willing to throw money and time at a problem, they can get over these hurdles. It's just, do they have the will to invest that money and time?
I guess that is the question. And yeah, it was one of those that I'm sure that they probably did like the kind of like the StarCraft Reforge first, because they probably knew that it was just going to be a success because its continued popularity, you know, over in Korea, and with you know, the huge esports names that kind of like left StarCraft 2 to go back to the original StarCraft. They could at least kind of like bank on that's popularity a little bit enough, and then see what the wider audience might say about it. And then, you know, obviously it was successful enough for them to go and pull the trigger on Reforged, and that could be just one of those ones where it's like, well, this is what it costs, this is what it took in order to go and like redo a game, you know, from the ground up. Well, this next one's going to be an even bigger project, you know, but we've got these metrics in order to go through and say that, hey, it can make money, it'd be worth the investment.
I do hope that the new cost-cutting measures that you know, Activision Blizzard implemented onto Blizzard won't affect the potential for something like that to happen. Yeah,
and you know, kind of speaking of that, we've had the CFO shuffle, you know, over the last couple of weeks, with you know, the CFO of Activision Blizzard leaving, and then the CFO of Blizzard themselves leaving. And you know, I've seen on Reddit and some communities and such, people going through kind of like talking and like cheering, like, oh, the shackles might be loosening, you know, and no, it's you know, as important of the position of the CFO is, they're not going to be the ones that are kind of managing the day-to-day implementation of these protocols and procedures, cost cutting and things of that nature. That once stuff like that is kind of started, it manages itself, and so I don't see them, like, if they, you know, they would have to put in, you know, the same people that put in these previous CFOs are going to be the ones that are putting in the new CFO, and I don't see them putting in someone that's going to have that radically different of a game plan in order to kind of change course on some of those avenues.
Yeah, completely agreed.
Yeah, and then now we have Bungie leaving Activision. And that's another one that I think that people don't like quite fully understand the context, because a lot of people have been saying, well, now Blizzard can go through, you should take a cue from Bungie in order to go and do it, and it's just, you know, Bungie got out of their publishing contract 2 years early. They weren't owned by Activision. They had.
Do you have any details on how they managed to get out of that?
Nothing that I've seen.
Okay.
Especially, you know, that was one of those ones because Bungie was owned by Microsoft. It wasn't an exclusive publishing agreement. They were owned, and they bought their freedom by selling Halo, you know. And so that's one of those ones that, even though Bungie is keeping Destiny, why could I not remember that name? I play it. It's that we don't necessarily know that, you know, Activision, you know, might still have a share or a cut of profits, you know, from the publication of, you know, Destiny 1, Destiny 2, and we don't know where and who knows if they have any stake in, you know, future things of the company. They might actually still own, you know, kind of like an investment share of Bungie itself, so that way they get a cut of anything that Bungie does in the future. We have no idea what the details are.
Yeah, and as you said, it's a completely different scenario for Blizzard. They aren't in a publishing contract. They are owned. They are part of Activision Blizzard. I mean, if you go back, Blizzard has never been independent. Well, okay, but beyond its first maybe couple years, but it was for the longest time owned by Vivendi, a huge corporation that owns a lot of things and a lot of various media. And my understanding is, I can't say Blizzard as a whole was miserable under Vivendi, but there were certainly a lot of people at Blizzard that were, especially Blizzard North. A lot of the Blizzard North Diablo developers left because of disagreements with Vivendi.
Yeah, I actually remember some of the old, I think it was an interview, I don't remember whether it was David or it was Bill Roper that did an interview, like this was, of course, is like a decade and a half ago, talking about going and leaving, and like some of their frustrations was just like Vivendi's like interference but non-involvement. And they said like, well, like we didn't even, like, just to tell you kind of like the level of miscoordination and everything that was going on there, like they didn't have contracts, and so they literally just left when they felt like it. It's just almost like to prove a point that is like, wow, well, you know, there is no like negotiations or prior notices or anything like that. Like, you know, I'm like the president, you know, of Blizzard North, I quit. And then I walk out and I'm done. You know, there's no like negotiations or handoffs or anything like that because of the kind of like the corporate mismanagement that was going on with Vivendi. That was, you know, one of the multitude of problems that they were having.
Yeah, and I mean, if there was already that discord there, like Blizzard couldn't afford to buy themselves free back then. What happened after that was, I believe, Activision approached Vivendi, and they decided to merge and rename themselves to Activision Blizzard. And then it was through the help of outside investors, years later, they managed to buy themselves completely free of Vivendi. But so today there's Activision Blizzard that owns Activision and Blizzard, but Activision Blizzard itself is run mostly by Activision people or former Activision people.
Now the board of directors are the same. They share like the same CEOs and such.
Yeah, so if Blizzard couldn't buy itself free under Vivendi, and Vivendi owned a number of various properties, and this was also in the height of like WoW's success, Blizzard couldn't afford to do it. Now, would Activision relinquish its golden goose? I mean, Activision doesn't own a number of media outlets that it could afford to just drop Blizzard. Like the amount of money that Blizzard would have to raise to buy itself free of Activision, I can't even fathom.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those ones, and I think I remember like some talk like when it was actually the formation of the company Activision Blizzard, and Mike Morhaime was going and talking about how it was a business agreement that Blizzard was comfortable with because it off-put some of like those corporate level decision making and things that Blizzard just didn't have to worry about because of their involvement with Vivendi and then moving into the agreement with Activision. Is that it was, you know, it's like they handle some of the stuff that we'll just never have to worry about, and so it helps us focus on making games, and so it's an agreement that we're happy with. That of course nowadays that sentiment might, you know, be changing, but who knows.
It's a great point though, because let's say Blizzard were to suddenly be free and completely independent, they don't know how to operate in a full capacity as this big company that they are now. Yeah, they would have to bring in people to help run things, and then is it really any different than? Well, I mean, I guess it is, but you can fall into the same trappings.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like, though it's probably something that they're getting more and more experience as, you know, Activision pushes Battle.net as a kind of like a you know, publication platform, a la Steam. And, you know, if that continues to go through and do it, there could be something, you know, it's like, well, we're already self-publishing the majority of sales of all of our titles anyways. But then, you know, what would Blizzard walk away with? You know, who actually, like, own, within the share of Activision Blizzard and such, who owns WoW? Is it Blizzard or is it Activision Blizzard? So that could be, like, one of those ones where, like, sure, go ahead, you can leave. You can buy your independence. But you don't have Warcraft anymore. You don't have StarCraft, Diablo anymore. You don't have Overwatch. You know, it was a similar situation to what Bungie went through when they bought their independence from Microsoft. They had to develop, you know, Destiny, a brand new IP, you know, in order to go through and, you know, make a name for themselves. And, you know, Bungie, of course, was, you know, a AAA developer, everyone has heard of Halo. You know, everyone has probably at least like watched someone play Halo. You know their former glory. You know, back in the heyday, and even despite that level of success and that experience as a developer, they still stumbled with the launch of Destiny, and so it's something that no matter what your actual kind of development chops are, there's a lot of things when you're on your own you might not necessarily think about, especially like budgets and production and all the other types of things.
Yeah, I wonder if part of the deal for Bungie buying its freedom involved fulfilling some degree of obligations towards Activision over time. Like maybe they need to release a couple more DLCs for Destiny or something.
Yeah, it could be. We also don't know. A lot of times in those publication contracts, there's like stipulations for number of titles released, and whether like DLCs count for that, or maybe they want like something closer to like Forsaken or Taken King level expansions or a third title.
Yeah, my understanding is that Bungie was never happy with their situation under Activision. Activision was always pushing for them to release either a new game or DLC or expansion, whatever, every year, some new product a year to sell, and that was putting a lot of pressure on Bungie, and they didn't want to have to meet those deadlines. That said, I think Activision got blamed for a lot of decisions that fans were unhappy with, such as what is it called, the in-game. But I think there's some word that actually a lot of those decisions were Bungie's and not Activision.
Oh, sorry, you're breaking up there a little bit.
I'll just quickly repeat. I think a lot of the people like to blame the Activision boogeyman for everything that went wrong with Destiny and Destiny 2, but from what I heard, a lot of those decisions actually were coming from Bungie and not Activision.
It's always, it's one of those ones where you don't want to associate mistakes with the thing that you like. It's not Bungie, it's Activision. It's not Blizzard, it's Activision. It's not it's not Santa Claus, it's the reindeer, type thing. It's like you have like the one thing that you really like, and you want them to be perfect, and so you don't want them to possibly make any mistakes, and so any negative qualities you want to associate with something else to not ruin your perfect image that you hold of this particular object, entity, publisher, developer, what have you.
Yeah, scapegoat.
Yep. And then also, speaking of the Bungie leaving Activision, there's another story that's been making its rounds of a law firm that is investigating charges of fraud against Activision Blizzard with with Bungie ending their publication contract with Activision early, and this is one that I've had some talks with some friends and such about. And I have a little tiny bit of experience in my long career history. I actually did work for specifically a securities law firm, and I am not a lawyer. Nothing I say can be taken as legal advice. Do not constitute any of this as legal advisement or whatever type of type of like disclosure agreement or disclosure context I'm supposed to give for it. But this press release that the company Pomerantz made is essentially like the securities equivalent of ambulance chasing. There's a article that GameDaily.biz published that goes into it in much better detail than what I could. But essentially what it is they chase after the potentiality that there might be a claim there. When the announcement that Bungie was leaving Activision hit, the stocks took a dive, and they're taking that and basically saying that, well, there's some clauses in SEC regulations and such that it was an event driven happening, and so it just means that they did something that caused the stocks to drop, and because of that, they could be liable for the lost money from investors. you know, that your shares decreased, and that they could have done something to prevent this, or at least inform investors beforehand so they could have had a time to make an informed decision. It's essentially, like, but if they, on the counterpoint of like these like kind of like event-driven things is, of course, if you knew what was going on and you sold your stock early, that could also be grounds for insider trading, which is, of course, securities fraud. But then not telling them ahead of time is securities fraud. So it's one of those ones where it's like nothing really bad happened, but some people like potentially lost like a lot of money. It's like a lot of money, and it obviously the stock can go back up and then they regain all of that money, or they could just buy more now at the lower price and then hold on to it for the future. But all that it is they put out this kind of like fake press release. They're not investigating fraud or anything like that. They're just trying to get a client that will be willing to sue Activision Blizzard, and then they can pursue class action status, and hopefully just to try and negotiate some form of settlement for pennies on the dollar, and then take home all the legal fees. And they go into detail in the article. I'll link it here in chat. That this particular law firm is known for these types of practices, and that they basically they're hunting headlines is what they're doing. They're looking for any type of big, large enough company that has a stock dip due to some sort of announcement, and then they just try to find someone that's willing to sue, and then try to go for class action and collect some cash.
When I first heard about this story, I was streaming and someone linked me the story, and just based on the headline, I just thought, I burst out laughing. I burst out laughing because it seemed, okay, Activision Blizzard getting sued now. It's just like another thing, another bad headline, another bad thing happening to Activision Blizzard. But upon further inspection, with my no background in anything legal, it seemed like, it wasn't anything really bad actually happening. And that's the thing with, right away, it felt skeevy to me. It felt skeevy to me because what I'd heard about class action lawsuits is that the only real winner, if the law firm does win, is that it's the law firm and not the actual, if you have like 1,000 people dividing the winnings amongst themselves, maybe they get a couple $100 each max, but it's the law firm itself that just winning a case is meaningful to a law firm, and they get to rake home, the lion's share, or at least they end up winning more. I guess you probably would know a little bit more about that. Yeah,
there's of course you have like your retainer fee, so it's usually a percentage, whatever that you get out of the settlement or out of the judgment, the law firm gets to take a percentage of it. Normally it's a pretty decent amount. It's like 30-40% that the law firm will get to go through and take. They'll also still charge you for costs, so material costs, printing, travel, things of that nature will a lot of times, also be taken out. In terms of class action settlements, usually not. That will be paid for, by the court, because then, depending upon your standing within a class action lawsuit, you could be part of what's known as like the driving committee that's handling the majority of the representation of the cases within a class action lawsuit. Normally, if you're on the driving committee, you will just get a flat cash amount, and it's usually pretty big numbers that you get because you did more work than other lawyers on the case. You were handling a larger amount of the caseload with the direct negotiations with the person that you're suing, as well as with the court and such, and so you're entitled to like it will always vary depending upon how much money is originally at stake, but you're easily talking 6+ figures, seven figures, depending upon the size of the case, that just for just for bringing the class action suit about and having the majority of the clients. You don't even necessarily have to do work, just if you have, I have 40% of everyone. Like one firm has 40% of all of the clients within this class action lawsuit, so we get a seat on the steering committee because you can't have the class action without me.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's a lot of those ones where it's like, you know, some law firms, that's just how they make money. And then of course then there's the other ones where if unclaimed like costs and such like that, a lot of times will also still get divided out between the participating legal parties. So, you know, if you get that little flyer in the mail, oh, AT&T, you know, got, you know, charged by the SEC for, you know, fraudulent taxes, you know, make sure that you log onto this website and claim your $15 check, you know, as part of the settlement. You know, if you never got that letter or never filled out that thing in time, that $15 goes back into a pot, and then, you know, not all of it goes back to the lawyers and such, but a percentage of it can. So, yeah, and law's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is not like back asswards at all. That was definitely my take on it. Though onto something maybe a little bit lighter subject matter. We've got something new here from Blizzard, that they're implementing something new for this year called the Blizzard Gallery, that you'll be able to go through and find on the Blizzard's the gear store. That they're going to be releasing a limited edition print every month, you know, throughout the year. It'll be from across all of their, you know, their collective IPs, and they're all going to be of similar nature. So it's the limited edition run, you know, never again to be produced in this format. Select prints that are they're all going to be signed by the artist. They're going to be 16 by 20. It's going to be matte print, and then of course, you know, the randomly assigned print edition numbers and such. And the first one for January was Jaina, and we have no idea what they're going to be doing for the other months for the rest of the year. And the only reason why I wanted to bring this up is because, oh, we have a chance at getting some more Diablo art. I don't know if it's something, if you ever collect any of like the posters or the limited edition prints that they do at past BlizzCons or what have you, or if it's something that interests you at all.
I am interested by the art. I can't say I collected, but as I was looking at it, something just occurred to me. Now, the character in question for our first print is named what again?
Jaina.
And what month is she associated with?
I'm picking up what you're putting down. January.
Do you think they would be so crafty as to maybe do something like that for all the months?
If they do it, whoever came up with that idea, I would want to buy them a drink. that they went to that lengths in order to do it, to find like a character that is, you know, at least like prominent enough to feature in one of these prints. Nothing is coming to mind for the month of February. I'm already stumped.
Yeah.
You know, I'm stumped 1 month in. So, you know, if they do it, hats off to them.
Is there some fell something for February? I don't know.
Like a fell guard, a fell hunter, a fell orc. I don't know. Now,
guess it's just coincidence.
Maybe. Maybe.
January.
Yeah.
January.
January. I like it. That's changing gears, but for a similar topic. Have you ever heard of Warhammer 40,000 or anything like that?
I'm familiar with Warhammer a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
I've played a couple of the games, but I've not played any of the actual tabletop. My friend has like some of the miniatures, but I've never played it.
Gotcha. I just wanted to, you know, see how far I'm going to lose you over the next 30 seconds.
Okay.
So, you know, the company that makes Warhammer, Games Workshop, they keep their production, kind of like their production docket, under pretty tight wraps. And so they'll tease and they'll hint a little bit about like what new models they'll be coming out with, what new army they'll be focusing on. But back in October of last year, they had kind of like a marketing campaign. They were going to release like a new Orc Codex for Warhammer 40,000, and so they started branding things as Orktober. And nice. Yeah, and so now into the new year, they did a really big. They had a big kind of like a like very, very miniature BlizzCon type thing. They have them periodically throughout the entire year called Weekenders. And the New Year Weekender is always something that they showcase a lot of things that they have, like little hints and teases that they'll have throughout the entire rest of the year. One of the new codexes that they're working on now is an army called Gene Stealer Cults. And so now the community itself is going and taking up that, well, if they showed off this many models, it's got to be coming soon. It has to be like the next thing that they do. So this is Genuary for Gene Stealers.
Nice.
Yep. And then of course, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'll let you finish that.
It's just, of course, I have to be like the Debbie Downer, like within like the little circles that are going through and speculating it. And it's like, well, these couple of releases, they said coming soon. Gene Stealer Cults, they said early 2019. And like when Games Workshop says early or something like that, you can consider them Blizzard, because early to them is like 6 months from now.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so it's just like one of those ones where it's like we've got a couple of releases.
Blizzard stole something else from Games Workshop.
They stole Warcraft, and now they're stealing soon. God damn it.
I'm gonna test your Warhammer knowledge real quick here. Ultramar.
Yes.
Does that tell you anything?
Yeah. Space Smurfs.
All right, so it's what? It's the homeworld of the Ultramarines?
Yep,
is that right?
It is the homeworld of the Ultramarines. They're named after their planet, not because they're the Mary Sue poster children of the Space Marines.
All right, I'm going to send you a link in Discord to an image. Now, where I live, we have a chain of gas stations called Ultramar. and the branding is blue with golden eagles.
How are they not
like the iconography, right?
How do they not get sued for that? Oh my god! Oh.
I made I don't think I can find the Photoshop, but I took a picture of an Ultramar station. I photoshopped in a bunch of Ultramarines like shooting orcs and stuff. Like Ultramar for Ultramar.
Yeah, I will definitely be very interested in seeing that, because I actually, for within like the 40K community, Space Marines are like a meme as being like the poster children, like the Mary Sues of the setting, and the Ultramarines are the Mary Sues of the Mary Sues. So the fact that I've never seen this pop up before is just like amazing that this even exists.
I'll try to dig up my Photoshop and send it to you at some point.
Okay, I will definitely be. I can't wait to see it. I cannot wait to see it. And it actually is one of those other interesting things. I don't know if you've picked up. It's something that I'll ask about. But did you know that like there are a lot of people on the Blizzard, specifically the Diablo development teams, that are Warhammer fans? Like,
I did not know that.
Huge,
I can't say it surprises me.
Yeah, huge in-depth like Warhammer fans. I was talking with one actual like World of Warcraft developer, Craig Morrison, at this last BlizzCon, and he was telling me stories about how Jay Wilson and Chris Metzen would get together for Warhammer 40K doubles tournaments, both playing Necrons, and just absolutely smoke everyone else in the company. Like they would have internal company competitions, and that they were like almost like they were the wargaming power couple. And so it's just, it kind of makes sense, like for Jay Wilson and also Josh, because going through and coming from development of the older Dawn of War titles, but then just, I mean, like almost anyone that you talk to, like even some of the developers that I know like that don't play or anything like that, I'll ask them about. They know a lot because all of their coworkers talk about it all the time. So it's one of those ones where it's like it's a very interesting little connection there. That even though Blizzard has a history, you could almost say that Blizzard wouldn't exist without Warhammer. That it still is like that. Also, that little connection here within our Diablo community, that the developers have like this close, intimate, knowledge and just association with Warhammer stuff. And so I can't remember. There's a shield in Diablo 3 that has an 8-pointed star on it. I can't remember what it is. I don't think that it's like a unique or a legendary or anything like that. It might be. I'm trying to remember, but there's an item that has an 8-pointed star, and it's like, that's the goddamn Star of Chaos. Like, it's just, that's straight up like the Star of Chaos. I have to go through and try and find it, and it's like, did they just make this, or was it intentional?
I'm trying to think of what the item is.
Yeah, I'll have to go through, like, look it up and add that as like an minimum to the episode, but I will find it again at some point.
Awesome.
And then, kind of sidetracking art conversation back into Blizzard, there is one other little thing that has popped up I want to say yesterday, but it was like literally it's like last night, like not even yesterday, is someone went through and noticed a very interesting little thing. There is a new posting on Amazon for an Art of Diablo art book that looks to be releasing sometime in October later this year. And this is just coming, they had the most recent like cinematics of StarCraft art book that they released a little while ago, and it could just be a continuation, that they're going through and just kind of like ramping up, some of like their internal production of like these art books and such. There's a little bit of a dead period there for a while where they were only, I think that they'd released like just like the one a Warhammer Chronicles like version 2, and it was a very long time before they did 3 or the Book of Adria. They just were doing the publishing the novels, but not like these art books, the source books, and these other kind of like little what's a proper word to describe it, like just like other little projects, like non-fiction projects that they've kind of been doing, and it's good to see them picking this type of thing back up. I absolutely enjoy. I love reading the Diablo novels, which if I can turn the right way, nope, there you go. That you can all see there, if I'll point the right direction behind me, at all the Diablo novels and such, as well as like the art books, the Book of Tyrael, Cain, Adria, and such. They're all like amazing little glimpses into like the lore and the story, which is one of my favorite parts of the Diablo universe. Yep, and Watson in chat, he was the one that went through and sent me the link on that one. Thank you for that. And it was originally found by a Medieval Dragon that went through and posted that. So
he does some good journalism.
Yeah, goes through. Definitely fine. It has kind of like the ear to the ground in terms of actually seeing this stuff like when it first comes out. But we don't have. Yeah, we just have the posting. We don't even have like when we first found like the Book of Adria, it at least had a placeholder. This one has nothing. So.
I do wonder. We had the comics that were officially canceled, but like they were very far in development, it seemed, before being pulled. And I think the rumor was that Blizzard wanted to be able to tell those stories in a different way. I don't remember if that was rumor or fact, but I wonder if Immortal is how they are telling the stories that they intended to tell in the comics.
I don't know. Yeah, because I know from like they had the opportunity there with Immortal, because they can. The format gives them a lot of freedom to tell a lot of those stories, because it's going to be, continual updated content and such, that they could go and it's like, oh, this Nephilim archive that you're breaking into actually doesn't tell it through books or stories. It's visions of the past. And so you actually go back and relive, Lilith's kind of a coup of going through and raising the Nephilim as an army and killing off all the other angels and demons on Sanctuary, which is kind of what that comic book seemed to be centered on. It was modern day scholars that were looking back to try and find the origin of humanity and like the Nephilim and such. And you know, there's a lot of different narrative styles that they could do with Immortal to do those things. Because I've also heard like some different things that it also was just like a lot of disagreements between Titan Comic and Blizzard as far as what they wanted to do or publication dates and such, and that it was just kind of like a mutual split or something along those lines. So I'm really not sure.
And then there was also the Netflix series that leaked.
Yep.
The head guy, for whatever silly reason, came out and said something that he shouldn't have said, and then he deleted the tweet, and now we haven't heard mum about it. I hope he wasn't fired over that. I hope the project wasn't canceled over that.
Yeah, which I mean, that's one of those ones that's kind of like interesting, since you know I have obviously an invested interest like in like the theater business, you know, the movie industry and such. That it's kind of interesting that you know you want that information out there. Oh yeah, we're talking to this guy to go through and be the showrunner and scriptwriter for our new series. Like you want those big names out there, you know, at the forefront. You know, but of course with Blizzard, you know, everything has to be kept under wraps. Everything has to be secret, and we're not going to announce it until we're ready to go through and announce it. So it's like interesting. Kind of like dichotomy there between like the way that Blizzard handles things and then what's the norm for that industry. So for him going through and saying, yeah, I'm fine with talks to go through and write, you know, the Diablo series for Netflix is just that. I mean, that's just normal. Like no one would, you know, like go through and have an NDA about this type of thing to say that I can't be the one that write it. I mean, like the people writing like the Star Wars movies, for God's sakes, like we can easily go on IMDb and go and look up who you know wrote episode 9, you know, coming out later this year. They don't keep those types of things under wraps. They you know, everyone knows. It's not a type of thing that the contents of it, yeah, that would be under an NDA, but just to say that I'm in final negotiations for writing the contract, no. That was one of those ones where I definitely feel as if it wasn't like an intentional slip up on his part. It was just that that's not how the industry he's used to operates, you know.
That's some good insight.
So I know this is Blizz Pro, and you're talking about Diablo, but I was curious about your thoughts on Warhammer Chaos Bane.
So Warhammer Chaos Bane, that is the upcoming Warhammer Fantasy RPG, correct?
Correct. And that question was asked by the one British in chat.
How you doing, British? So I only saw some update. It's been a while since I've seen any updates or that updates have reached my radar, but preliminary glimpses seemed promising. It didn't look like something that would like compete with next gen RPGs, but that it could be a solid like current gen contender. You know, we had Inquisitor Martyr released in the summer, and that was fun. And this seems like something that's also promising.
Yeah, because they're using similar systems to Inquisitor Martyr for this one, just kind of like changing it into like a more fantasy style. I believe you'll probably know more about that one than I will, because I haven't really looked into it too much.
Are you more of a 40k guy or a fantasy guy when it comes to Warhammer?
I am more of an Age of Sigmar guy.
Which one is that? I'm not familiar.
It is fantasy, but it's the new fantasy.
Okay.
Yeah. So like the Chaos Bane takes place in the world that was the old Warhammer fantasy setting that they actually killed off and completely revamped.
Oh.
Yeah. That was back, I believe it was, what was it now? It was 2015, 2014, that was the end times. It was the final climactic battle between the forces of good and the forces of chaos. Chaos won, and the world was destroyed.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they rebirthed it, and they have the Age of Sigmar, which is actually, it's a lot more high fantasy. It's closer to, well, you'd probably be familiar with it. Kind of like the third edition Dungeons and Dragons type setting with like the planescapes and such, because everything is divided into the different planes, which is like the embodiment of like the 8 forms of magic, and so it's a lot of like big high fantasy, you know, graveyards the size of continents and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool, interesting setting. 2016 was the end times. Okay, 2016. So yeah, but to answer your question, fantasy.
All right.
Were you gonna follow up anything on that one?
I was just curious.
Oh, okay.
I think most of my friends prefer 40K.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if it's just a general thing that most people prefer 40K, or but I mean, obviously there's been interest over what, decades.
Yeah, 40K is leagues more popular than the fantasy brand. When that was part of the reason why they kind of killed it and relaunched it as the Age of Sigmar. There of course was not only the narrative change, but a lot of system changes to make it a bit closer to 40K. They lost you know, a good share of the old guard, and that actually kind of spawned off into a different game system that they called the Ninth Age, because Warhammer Fantasy's last edition was 8th edition, and so then they took that rule set and just kind of tweaked it a little bit and called it Ninth Age. Because it was a completely different style of game using more or less the same models, but the style of the game itself changed, and then the narrative of course changed like considerably, but it's been growing in popularity year after year, and they launched kind of like the AOS kind of like 2.0, not really like a true second edition, but a kind of like a revamp this past summer, and it's been growing ever steadily in popularity. And I have to say, in my local gaming community, I have converted a lot of people from 40K over to Age of Sigmar because I'm greedy and rather play that game.
Nice.
Yeah. From what you know, do you have a preference?
I guess I prefer 40K mostly just because it's a lot more unique to me within the scope of fantasy, period. It might just be as well that I don't know as much about Warhammer Fantasy, but it just strikes me as a little bit more kind of, you know, you have your orcs and your humans and I guess other kind of races, but I felt like 40K was something that I don't see any other real parallels to. It feels a lot more unique to me. I like that dark vibe to it. I like the dark science fantasy, the whole like concept of the warp and whatever. It's really cool ideas.
There are no good guys. I think that's one of the things that I actually enjoy about it. There's like no actually like good faction. They're all bad guys. The only one that like objectively like isn't evil is the Tyranids, which because they have no emotions. They just want to you know eat all life in the galaxy and then move on to another galaxy.
Just hungry.
Yeah, they're just hungry. There's nothing malign about that.
Force of nature.
Right.
Hurricane isn't evil.
Well, yeah. I think that pretty much wraps it up in terms of topics that I have, and I was gonna go and hold off. The majority of like the community emails that I've gotten have been more of like a personal nature of the show, and you know, previous times with guests and such, we would kind of like read emails back and forth. But I feel this one would just kind of like you just be sitting there while I read my emails, and that, you know, sounds incredibly exciting, I'm sure. So just gonna go through and skip that, but you know, it was definitely a pleasure going and having you on, you know, picking your brain, sharing some ideas. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about while we go through and wrap up here?
Not in particular. Just thanks a lot for having me. As we've discussed, you know, it's something we've wanted to make happen for a while, and I'm glad we finally managed to schedule it, and that it you know, I know you're making an effort to accommodate my schedule. I'm glad that it matched up with yours. Yeah, always a pleasure to chat with you.
Definitely, and that's one of those ones where it's like full disclosure, like the conversation we were having before the show. If we hadn't recorded today, if we were recording tomorrow, I would have had to have canceled the show because of my work schedule. So it actually is one of those ones where it's like accommodating you to get you on one of your off nights when you're not trying to like rush the show in between the streaming and such, was actually like serendipitous.
I was gonna use that same word.
Oh, there we go. Jinx, mind jinx. It ended up being like a miracle in disguise type thing, because I've got a lot of work and some hardware upgrades in front of me for tomorrow, and so I just did not see any way about having to work it in between the show schedules and such that there was any way that I'd actually be able to make the show. It would either had to have canceled or rescheduled for another day anyways. So this was perfect. This was actually perfect. So definitely thank you for not being available on Wednesday.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate it. But yeah, I before I hit my actual full outro, are there any shout outs or anything that you'd like to do before we go into the end?
Not in particular, I guess. I mean, I guess if you folks want to see more of my content, Rhykker, Rhykker, the spelling is down there. I know it's weird, but just Google that, I guess. Diablo guides if you want to know what some builds for next season.
Come on, let's all be serious. If you're watching this show, you know who he is. You probably already watch his content. Yeah. So go ahead, and if you don't, check it out, because this man is amazing. Definitely one of the icons, of the Diablo kind of like content creation community. So go through, check him out. He's on, you do of course your YouTube page, and what's your streaming schedule?
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday, Wednesday is in the afternoons Eastern time, and then Fridays are evenings Eastern time.
All right, so go check him out, twitch.tv/Rhykker. You can follow him on Twitter @Rhykker. And while we're going through and talking about that, of course, if you want to go and send in your topics, your items, or just questions or comments for the show itself, feel free to drop us a line. Westmarch Workshop @blizzpro.com, and you can follow the show on Twitter @the WM Workshop. We live stream here every other Wednesday, mostly, at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. We start at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And you can also follow us. You can find us in game. We're the BlizzPro clan. If you don't want to leave your current clan, you can go through and check us out in the Westmarch Workshop community. And then you can also go through, hang out and chat at discord.gg/BlizzPro. And then please feel free to go and check out all the content that we do over the BlizzPro network. You can find a lot of the topics that we talk about here on the show at diablo.blizzpro.com, but we cover everything Blizzard related, and we actually have just recently launched a non-Blizzard related general nerd geek site called Yeti Arcade. We talk about gaming, movies, TV shows. When and if I ever have time, I'm going to use that as a platform to rant about Warcraft, and no one can stop me. Or not Warcraft, Warhammer. Got it wrong, just like Blizzard did. But yeah.
Heyo.
And then you can also follow me individually at Neinball Gamer on Twitter, and I might, depending upon how the next couple days go, I might actually have time to stream the seasonal opening at twitch.tv/Neinball. And with that, kind of brings us to a close. And I know it's been like 50,000 times I've said it in the last hour and a half, but again, thank you so much for going through and being on the show. Can't wait to have you on here again.
It's a pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me.
And then now we just have to close out the show doing Arnold quotes.
Okay. It's not a tumor.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers.
I'm Detective John Campbell.
I'm a cop, you idiot. I hope you saved room for my fist, because I'm gonna ram it into your stomach and break your goddamn spine.
Hey, I'm a police officer.
Thank you for joining the show, everybody.